Welcome everyone today. Our presentation is going to be on productivity tools for site design in Civil 3D. My name is Brian Lewandowski. I'm the Civil Product Manager here at CTC Software, and I'll be giving the presentation for you. So one of the things we want to talk about is how to make our pipe networks better, and we've got a number of tools that help with this. One of them are the most popular one that allows us to design pipe runs in a dynamic interface. It's an Excel type interface where I can hold constant slopes or edit one by one, adjusting invert drops, sumps, you name it. I'll get into that one in detail and show you that. We can also, when changing our design, swapping out structure or pipe types, we can be doing this through a multiple part swapper in plan or profile natively. All you can do is edit one part at a time. We'll be able to do it all at once, saving us time as well there. And then we can also manage a lot of the part data across our entire networks through one interface. Oftentimes we're editing things like perhaps the material or the grate, or maybe even just a description field or reference alignment. And a lot of those fields we have to edit one by one, when in fact we want to edit many parts at once. That's what Parts Tagger is going to allow us to do. And then another tool set is going to give us a number of options around automated legends, sheet tables, QTO, basically anything that involves scanning our drawings to create tables, Excel outputs, anything like that. And this tool is called Data Wizard, and there's a screenshot of it there. We'll jump into it in more detail in a bit, but it allows me to scan for any kind of Civil 3D or AutoCAD object and generate any kind of tables or legends from them. You notice it'll insert graphics and legends. We can do QTO, you name it. These tables update when the drawings change as well. So if there's a change, perhaps you're making a layering change or new data comes into your drawing, you can simply refresh those tables and they will reflect the latest in that drawing. And you can also save templates. As you can imagine, these tables or QTO scenarios, if they can scan all AutoCAD and Civil 3D objects, there's a number of settings in there. Well, it's nice to be able to save out templates so you can quickly recreate that exact type of QTO or that exact type of legend on one project after another. You can share those templates with all kinds of other users at your organization, and people can just load them and be on their way. So with that, I'm going to jump into Civil 3D and walk you through a few of these tools. So the first ones are around pipe networks. And in particular, we're talking about that multiple part swapper. And here I've got a plan and profile scenario, a storm line in my project. And most of the time, or not most of the time, but natively, if I want to change any of these parts like this for a curb inlet, I have to do it one at a time. When in fact, what we're often wanting to do is to grab many parts at once. And it may not just be plan, it could be profile as well. So I'm going to select some structures in plan view. We'll grab some pipes in profile view. So perhaps those in plan need to swap out for curb inlets, and then in profile, we want to switch that size. We want to bump that size of pipe up. So I can grab all those parts, run my parts swapper, and it's going to give me a simple interface where it defaults to by selection. Now notice I could do by entire network, so I could swap all pipes or all structures at once for something else, but I'm going to stick with the by selection method. And then down here I've got my parts list, and then I can choose my replacement structure. We said we wanted to do curb inlets, and then my replacement pipe. Remember, I chose those in profile. We're going to a 48-inch. Okay, and we can swap them all at once. So normally it'd be every part we'd have to do that one by one. We can do it all at once here. That happens to be a free tool, in fact. All the light green buttons in the CIM Project Suite are free tools. You can download them, use them, and definitely the green ones are free with a trial, and then paid after the trial period. So moving on, looking at Pipe Designer. Like I said, this is one of the most popular tools in here, and it allows us to work with pipe networks in the way we want to design them. Now, natively in the software, to change pipe slopes or pipe inverts, we have to come into those structure or pipe properties and change it here. Now we can also go into a pipe network vista through the pipe network layout tools, and it gives me a tab for pipes and structures. And while I can see them all here, it makes it hard to do things like hold a constant slope or a constant invert drop, and really design in terms of pipe runs and not just single parts at a time. So what Pipe Designer allows me to do is to pick an entire pipe run, and I can do this again in Plan or Profile. And I'm going to select the first one here. Then I just select the last one of the pipe run I want to load. I'm going to grab this entire profile view. And it loads it into this very familiar looking Excel type interface. Now this is not Excel. It runs right in within the software. But now I have access to all this stuff, and it kind of behaves like Excel. Like say I wanted to hold that constant slope. Okay, say I want a negative 0.8%. I can press and drag or copy to clipboard and paste around. And as I do that, if I zoom out, get our whole pipe network showing there again. When I hit apply to this, you'll see all those slopes change at once. We're doing other things like constant invert drops. Okay, notice when I did that, those cells that were highlighted red changed to black. And it's because I've got my highlight rule violation turned on here. So this tool will actually read the rules in your pipes and structures, and it will highlight them red if those rules are violated. And as soon as I fit within those rules, meaning getting my minimum invert drop in this case, the highlighting goes away. Same thing for sump. I can do a constant 0 sump, or maybe I want a sump of 1 on these structures, 1 foot. So if I hit apply, we'll see that update down here. Okay. Now the order that this loads in Pipe Designer is just the order that I picked in. So I picked in a storm design scenario where I was designing downstream. I could have picked from right to left, designing upstream. It doesn't matter. But the whole spreadsheet works kind of like a cascading set of formulas. So this was 779. I changed it to 778. Watch all the gray fields as I tab out of this. All of those recalculate. Okay, so it's a bunch of simple formulas, and they're just doing that simple math for you in a kind of a cascading view. So we've got structures, pipes, structures, pipes, kind of in the order, or not kind of, but in the order that you chose them. So I've set some of those values there. I can move this around, say we're dropping this. If I hit apply, this entire pipe run will update with it. Now I don't need a constant slope, of course. Perhaps the larger pipes have a different slope. Something like a 48-inch RCP can be really flat. Okay. I'm designing by matching inverts in this case here, but what about when we have small pipes going into large pipes? A matching of crowns is often a preferred method, and with that we in fact have our crown matching factor. So factors like 0.75 or 0.8 are fairly common. So when I set that and set a drop of 0.1, notice what will happen down here if I hit apply. That outgoing larger pipe, okay, now is in a crown matching scenario with a matching coefficient of 0.8. Again, I can drop those sumps out of there. So a very popular tool. You can see it's pretty intuitive to work with. Okay, I just change values in the spreadsheet, one or multiple ones at a time. I can be on my way. Now, what kind of information you show here? I've got all kinds of different columns. Do you want to see station and offset? Maybe you want to see the build of your structure so you can make sure you stay within a certain max value. Description fields. Okay, all this we can turn on. And any cell that's white, including structure number, the description, you can edit those here. So we've got access to some of that basic information on those parts as well. Notice it's stating the rule violation that's occurred here. Here I've gone over my 200 feet for a pipe length. Okay, I need to go out and change my actual pipe network. I violated that length, but everything else is satisfied. Now you can turn those rule violations off and then nothing highlights. You're on your way. Now there's also a elevations design method. If I click that, now I get to edit the elevations and the slopes are calculated. So as I change this value here, that slope will calculate based on these starting and ending inverts. I can choose to have the sump or the invert of the structures being controlled or calculated. If I click on this, you'll see that highlighting change down below. I can edit sump or I can edit invert. You can choose how you edit those structures. And then same for pipes. Do I want to be working and editing the invert, the crown or obvert, or the top of the pipe? And as you click through those, it's going to read those values from that part itself. And as you change those values, it'll edit that specific value in the part. So that's Pipe Designer, a nice, robust tool. Allows you to work with pipe networks a much more effective way, where you get to design in terms of pipe runs and not just working one at a time. You know, oftentimes pipe networks, I think they're great tools in that they're 3D parts with a lot of our, you know, the metadata we want in there for labeling or tabling or quantification, but they don't really work like design tools. Well, that's what Pipe Designer does. It allows you to think in terms of entire pipe runs and edit entire pipe runs at once. So moving on, we'll look at Parts Tagger. This is managing all that metadata within your parts. And this information contributes to a lot of different things. Storm schedules, it could be the labels on your structures. It could be analysis information like a Manning's coefficient in your pipes. Well, a lot of this information you have to edit again one part at a time. So I'm not talking about the design values, slopes and inverts, but all that other metadata, like I said, Manning's coefficient, or in our structures. Perhaps I want to assign some castings, or I want to assign the correct reference alignment to my structures. I've got to do that one at a time on each structure. So instead, what I can do is grab, let's say, grab all these curb inlets. We'll select all of these, and I've got a number of them across my project. And then I load Parts Tagger. And now I get access to all these values that I might want to change on a project-by-project basis. Now, some values, like I said, they're reserved for Pipe Designer. Other ones are reserved for Parts Tagger, where it's more metadata in the, although there is some crossover. You can edit the sump here and a few other things like the surface adjustment value. So there's a Structures tab and a Pipes tab. There's that Manning's coefficient I was talking about, as well as reference surface and alignment. But let's say in our structures, we're trying to assign the casting over here. It's unique to the jurisdiction that this project is in, and I can type in whatever that name or number might need to be. Perhaps my reference alignment, I need to assign that. And then maybe in plan view, there's some notes that are to be pulled from my description. I can edit the description field here as well. Maybe we're salvaging something on this. Anyway, you can just type any kind of notes you want in the description. If your labels are pulling from that, you can push all that information around. Again, normally we'll be doing it one at a time. Here in that structure table, we've got all the station and offsets, castings showing up. Okay, this is just a regular Civil 3D table here, but we can manage all that metadata in mass across the entire pipe network. So that's Parts Tagger, another simple tool, easy to work with. Why don't we move on to some of the QTO and legend creation stuff we were talking about. I want to start off with QTO here. Now here I've got a site example where I've got a number of features in here. I've got feature lines representing the curb lines here, so they could be polylines. I've got a lot of different blocks for some vegetation, some overhead lighting, and I've got hatching, got all sorts of things in here. And I want to quantify this. And there's really no way to do this in one place. I mean, there is the QTO manager, but it doesn't automatically pick things up. You got to assign pay items to it, a really clumsy tool. And then there's no way to do it for both AutoCAD and Civil 3D objects. So with Data Wizard, we can launch this, and right off the bat, we can choose our drawing sources. Now, I'm just going to scan the current drawing, but I could look into XREFs. If I had some brought in here, those would show up, and I could scan multiple drawings or XREFs at once. I could be limiting to a layout, or I could include additional drawings. So say it's perhaps a QTO across your entire project. You could load all of your base files in here, quantify all that information at once. Okay, on the next screen here, we have all the different AutoCAD and Civil 3D object types that we might want to scan for. One we don't have in here is pipe networks. We're adding that very soon to the tool. That should be out sometime this year. But you can see most every other AutoCAD and Civil 3D object is here. Now we had said we've got some blocks, we've got some feature lines, and we have some hatches that we want to scan for. If I click refresh over here, you see it's showing the information that comes through, the total items and then the filtered items. Now, depending on your drawing, you might want to filter things by a certain layer or layer description or object name. Depending on the object type, you've got all kinds of filtering options here, like point groups or site. Okay, depends on the object type. And we want to grab everything in the drawing here. So here it's showing the results that I'm getting. I've got a variety of blocks, a number of feature lines and hatches. Okay, and then what information do we want to pull from those objects? That's what this screen is about, the data to extract. I've got layer description, area, and 2D length, and then a count here. Now I could be pulling all kinds of information depending on what I'm trying to do. All that base data, like layer and style names and descriptions, quantity information, 2D length, 3D length, or maybe it's location information, northings, eastings, elevations. And then finally on this last screen, I get to choose what information is going to be written to my table. Now I could write this to Excel or to an AutoCAD table right here. I'm going to go out to Excel and write that to a path I've set before. So I'll hit finish to this. It's going to create that Excel file. I popped it up on my other screen here. Then it counted all of those items. Now I told it to be labeling layer description, but we could be pulling through the block name or however you want to sort your data. We can read all that information from it, have that right to the table. So really powerful, robust tool. That's a simple QTO scenario. There's all kinds of other things we could be doing too. Basically, we can scan any number of drawings to generate any kind of table or any kind of Excel export we want. And it's not like a lot of the AutoCAD or Civil 3D native tools where they're just limited to a few object types or not very flexible. Or like this scenario, creating a legend, there's no way to get symbology automatically to show up in our legend. And what are we doing currently with legends? Well, oftentimes we have some one-size-fits-all that we drop into our sheets, and then maybe we delete some rows, or maybe we just leave them as is, showing information that's perhaps not in a project, or worse yet, something that is in a project isn't in our legend. And people do that because it's really tedious to create custom legends each and every time for every project, multiple legends for a given project. Well, with Data Wizard, it's pretty easy. So here's an existing conditions sheet. I'm going to make a sheet-specific legend. And I've got a couple layouts in here. I'm going to make a sheet-specific legend for these two existing conditions sheets. So I'm going to grab the current drawing, but again, it could be XREFs. I'm going to limit it to the Site Plan 1 layout. And then I'm going to choose the viewport as well. So I want a legend to represent just that viewport. The next screen here, I'm going to choose just my survey figures, survey points, and hatches. Like I said, this is an existing conditions drawing based on some survey data. I can click refresh to this here. Then I get to start to control what shows up here. For one, up here I can exclude certain layers, like frozen layers. And now you see those filtered items are trimmed down in the list. If we look at our results on the next screen, we'll see it's coming through pretty well. I've got trees and some signage, but oftentimes Data Wizard doesn't know what your data is going to look like. And so here it's categorizing it as separate items, even though these are all deciduous trees. And then in the survey figures, I'm getting some of that line work I want, but I'm also getting some extra stuff that's just on layer 0 that I don't care about. So if I look into the filtering, and that's right here, we've got unique filters for each object type. I can come in here and say, you know what, only grab items that are on layers with symbol or SYMB in them. And then for those duplicate trees we're getting, we can weed things out, weed out duplicates, and say that anything that starts with TRD, count that as just one item. And I can fill out everything that might be a duplicate in here. And the reason is, you'd fill out these filters in more detail than maybe you need for a given project is because we can save these out to a template. So you want to build out these filters and things to work for all your projects, for all the object types and blocks and survey points that you might have coming in. So when I hit OK to this, we'll see that number trimmed down. Let's go into our survey figures as well. Put a layer filter on there. And then looking at the next screen, now it's trimmed down the tree because I don't need to show the tree 6 or 7 times. Survey figures. Now you don't have to use that filter, and you can just simply uncheck the items right here if you don't want it to show up in your table. But the filtering often is more flexible and it'll work from one project or drawing to the next. Now, of course, I'm building a legend here, so I don't necessarily want all this information in here. So I can go into my data to extract and choose what information. Now in a legend, it's common to show some kind of symbology or a line example and then some text to say what that is. Well, I'm going to use layer description and then turn off these other ones so that I just have the graphic or the symbol itself and then the layer description. So I missed that there, hit the wrong button. Hit OK to that. So just the layer description and then the graphic will show up. Going to the next screen here. These are my formatting options. Now these don't matter as much when you're going to Excel because we're just writing that data out. But if I'm creating a table right in the drawing here, now I start to care about like the cell size, things like that. Do I need additional scale factors on my symbols, line types, or hatches? Maybe I want to put a title in there. What's the capitalization to look like? Okay, all of that shows up here. And then you can control the sorting as well. Again, we're just using layer description, but you can sort things any way you choose. If you want custom sorting by your groups, you can press and drag these around like this. And I want hatches on the bottom. You could put the graphic on the right side or the left. You can drag the columns around. And then finally, I'll hit finish. It's going to prompt me to drop my table. It's the top left corner. It's going to insert an AutoCAD table right into my sheet. And this is, again, based on just what's in my drawing, what's on this layout, and what is in this viewport. Now, when this shows up, maybe you want it a little wider, a larger sample there. Okay. On that last screen, the formatting screen, we had options for minimum cell width. Maybe we want to go to 3 on this. And then finally, I had mentioned it earlier, but let's go ahead and do this now. I've got all my settings the way I want them, so I can save a template. And I just simply write this out. And this would be like an EG sheet template. Okay, now I'm going to be able to reuse this on other projects, other drawings, other sheets. I'll hit save to this. I'll hit finish. And it'll generate my new legend. Should be a little bit wider graphics sample. We bumped it from 2 to 3. Okay. And what I'm creating here is just an AutoCAD table. There's nothing proprietary here. This will be read in any Civil 3D instance that may not have the CIM Project Suite installed. Okay. We're just automating the creation of it. This is an AutoCAD table with blocks embedded in them, in fact. Okay. Now I mentioned these are dynamic. They update, right? So if there's a change in my drawing, let's freeze a couple things, maybe the sod, and we don't want any of that vegetation to show up. Okay. If I run the update table command right here, prompts me to pick a table. A simple interface shows up. I say read the settings from the table, though I could load a different template to override how that table looks. And when I hit OK, you're going to see that tree and that grass hatching disappear. So the tables are dynamic in that they can respond to drawing changes. You have to click the button. It doesn't do it automatically for you. So anything else that changes in the drawing, new information comes in, you name it. And now that we have that template, right, I saved out a template. I could go to other drawings if I'm doing a sheet-specific thing like this, or maybe I'm jumping to the next project. Either way, when I launch Data Wizard right at the top here, I can just load a template. Here's that one I saved out. And now all those settings on all the screens are the same as I had set in that previous example. If there's anything that changes, you can just go ahead and do that. In this case, we do have a different layout, so we need to select a different layout and different viewport, but everything else will stay the same. So all that filtering I put in there, all of that stays. You can just click through this stuff and drop the table right in here. And now this one's different, of course, because we have what? The trees are showing in this viewport. We have some storm sewer pipe, right? It's a different legend. Now I did this sheet specific. We could have generated one legend based on this whole drawing. Place that on just one sheet, or maybe a master legends sheet for your entire project. Either way, you can scan for any number of drawings, limit them to layouts and viewports, or include all the drawings in your project or any sample thereof. And what you put in these tables, it can be just about anything. A lot of people use callouts like this. Here's an example where we've got M leaders with blocks embedded in them, and we have attributes in them, and it's really handy. It takes our tag number, and then we can have a hidden description there. And if I just drop these around on my project, I can very easily make a keynote table out of these. Let's run setup table. We're going to run this, we're going to limit it to this viewport here. And when you pick a viewport, it does more than just trim the data that's coming through it. It makes sure that the symbology scales to exactly how it looks in that sheet. So that's important, certainly. Now there are overriding scale factors that you can use after the fact on that last screen of Data Wizard. But if you choose a viewport, it's just going to know what to do, automatically scale to how you've got that set up. I'm going to scan for multi-leaders. If I hit refresh, you see 18 of them are showing up. You can look at the next screen here. It shows that I'm getting a variety of these multi-leaders showing up. Now, what kind of information do I want to show? Well, I want to show the graphic itself. And then I've got another category here for additional data. Now I said those multi-leaders have attributes in them. Those are custom fields. They're not into these hard-coded standard Civil 3D and AutoCAD fields. So additional data applies to any custom fields that you might create. And with this, we can now control what of those might want to be shown in our tables. So here's those attributes. Block attributes will show up. What about survey or parcel user-defined information? That can all show up here. GIS object data, and then Civil 3D property sets. So all that, those custom fields, all of that can be pulled through Data Wizard as well. We're going to pull description. And if I look on the final screen where we start to look at our results, here's those hidden attributes in the multi-leaders. Now this is just one way to use Data Wizard, many different ways, but I just want to show you that we can pull just about any kind of objects through and read data from them. We're going to write this to just an AutoCAD table. I think I've got my settings right. We'll hit finish. And then we'll drop this table right into our layout. Okay. Looks like that cell height is a little tall. Let's go back in there and run that again. Here's the beauty of this. It remembers your settings, your previous settings, so you can just jump to that screen you were after, perhaps a height of 0.3. Sort by the object. See if this looks a little bit more like what we're after. There we go. Didn't get that sorting quite right, but you get the idea. And again, these are dynamic, right? So that if the objects that this is scanning change, like let's just go into one of these multi-leaders here, and maybe it's not 4-inch, it's 3-inch decorative concrete. Change it to 4, from 4 to 3. Okay, you'd of course want that reflected in your table. You simply run the update table command right up here. Pick on your table, and now we should see this item here change to 3-inch decorative concrete. Okay. Accuracy of our plan sets make a big difference, right? Detailed tables, legends, and this kind of information, as well as QTO, is important. And a lot of times we're stuck with tools that won't handle our entire project, or manually building this stuff where it's one, time consuming, and two, error prone, right? We don't want things in our legends that shouldn't be there, or vice versa. Things that should because they're in the project, but we missed it because we were manually building our table, or we grabbed a one-size-fits-all table. So a lot of different ways to use Data Wizard, and it works with just about any standards that you might have. You saw me pulling through block attributes, layer descriptions, all kinds of things. Layer description's a nice field because it's seldom used for other things. People use it oftentimes maybe just to understand what to put on that layer, but in terms of that data actually contributing to your deliverables, it's not used that much. And it's a field that's common across all object types. So that's a handy one for generating reports, because the layer description is common across all those object types. But you could use style descriptions, style names, attributes, any kind of thing to categorize or sort your information. So that's what I wanted to show you guys today. I didn't see any legends, or excuse me, any questions come through. But while I wait for those to come through, I'll mention, if you're wondering how to get this, you can simply go to our website, CTC Software, and you can go right to the products and the CIM Project Suite. That is the suite that has these tools I was talking about. There's standalone licensing, network licensing, and on the web page here, all kinds of videos and information about all of these tools.